Hey, welcome. In this video, we will build an application that will automatically summarize your meetings for you. So the use case is basically, let's say you missed a meeting and you don't want to listen to the whole thing all over again because it might be a long meeting, right? It could be like a 40-minute, 50-minute, 1 hour, or maybe even longer than an hour meeting. And if you just missed it, you will probably just want the main concepts that was talked about in this meeting. So that's why we made this app. So to basically quickly go through it, what's going to happen is that once you get the recording of this meeting, you can upload the audio file here. This audio file will also be displayed here, so you can just go over it and listen to any parts that you're interested in. We will extract the main themes that was talked about in this meeting. So in this specific one, I am using the reunion of the Lord of the Rings cast, where they have a Zoom meeting together. And in this specific one, of course, they're talking a lot about movies, technology, food and drink, television, family and relationships, etc. So these were the main themes that was talked about in this meeting. And we will also get some different chunks, different chapters in this meeting. So at some point, apparently they were talking about how this video is sponsored by Cheerios. And a part where the theme was a trip into the past, a Lord of the Rings reunion, etc., etc. And then we will also get for each of these chapters a summary of what was talked about in this specific part. And we can also click to, if you're specifically interested in this little chapter, you can click and the player will jump to that place and you can start listening.
Please welcome to Reunited Apart Lord of the Rings edition, the final.
So let's learn how to make this. So let's first set up the Streamlet structure of this whole application, and then we can add the machine learning capabilities on top of it. The first thing that I want to do is to import Streamlit. And then I will ask the user to upload a file. I will just call this uploaded file for simplicity. Normally, if there is no file that was uploaded, our Streamlit application, the Streamlit function here, will return a none. But we can say if uploaded file is not none, then we can do something here. And the thing that I'm going to do is to display the audio file that was just uploaded. For now, I will set the start time to be 0, but as I said, after we have the chapters, we can change this to dynamically start at when the chapter starts. Next, I'm going to create 2 new Python files. This one will be to communicate with AssemblyAI's speech-to-text API, and the next one will be the configure file. This is where I will keep my AssemblyAI API token, basically. So in here, what I'm going to do is to import the requests library, because that is the library that's going to help me communicate with AssemblyAI's API, and also paste the function that will help me send the file that I get from the user to AssemblyAI and get a transcription plus some of the analysis that we saw. So for example, the categories and the auto chapters back from AssemblyAI. So let's go through this line by line. First of all, what we're doing is we are defining the transcription and the upload endpoints for AssemblyAI. The upload endpoint is where we're going to upload our file, the file that we get from the user, the audio file. And the transcript endpoint is where we're going to send the request for the transcription to happen, but also the extra NLP capabilities to happen. It's the same URL that we're going to use. After that, what we're creating is a post request to AssemblyAI's upload endpoint with the audio file that we're going to get from the user, and we will define it here. We will basically use the uploaded file. So I can already actually include it here. So if I say from get results, import all, I can already call the what was the name of the function? Upload to AssemblyAI function. And to that, I will send the uploaded file. So basically, this is how we're going to do this. And what we also need here are the headers. The header consists of 2 things. One of them is the API authentication token that you have, and the other one is the content type that you're going for. I will define the header here. So as you can see, right now we're missing the authentication token. So what I'm going to do is go here in the configure.py file and then I will define an authentication token. And in here, I will paste my authentication token that I get from AssemblyAI, and that's quite simple. All you have to do is after you make an account at AssemblyAI.com, you can sign in and then you will have access to your token. And just by clicking it, you'll copy it and then you can paste it here. After I save that, I can again come here and say from configure, import all. Or you can just say import authentication token. So this one, but you know, it's the same thing. So it works. So all right, after we create the request, the post request to the AssemblyAI's upload endpoint, we will also get a response from it. So after it is uploaded, we will get a JSON response, and this response will have the URL of the file that we just uploaded so that we have access to it. And I will keep it in this variable called audio URL. And when we want to start a transcription, what we're going to do is first we're going to create this JSON file or JSON variable that includes the audio URL, so the link or the address of the audio that we just uploaded to AssemblyAI, and some extra things here. So basically these two things mean IAB categories. If you set it to true, what you're saying is I also want on top of the transcription that you're sending me the categories that this piece of audio belongs to. And also you are saying by saying auto chapters is true that you want this audio to, or this transcription to be divided into chapters. Well, you will get a heading for them. You will also get a longer summary for them and the gist. So basically a couple of word summarization or a couple of word headline of this chapter. But this is what we're going to get from it. Same as last time, like the upload, we are again creating a post request. We are this time sending it to transcript endpoint using the JSON variable that we just created, and also again the headers for authentication purposes. And from this, again, we get a response, a JSON response, and from using this response, we can keep track of how the transcription going, because it's not going to happen instantly. We're going to have to wait a little bit, but using this transcription endpoint that we already know and the ID that we got from the response when we created the transcription request, we can create a polling endpoint. And this polling endpoint will help us go back to AssemblyAI and ask, hey, are my results ready? So that's why in the main Streamlit application file, I will also say this is returning me the polling endpoint. From this point on, what we want to do is to check to see when the transcription is done and then visualize or display the results to the user. So to understand what kind of thing that we need to do, let's first go and take a look at the documentation from AssemblyAI and understand what kind of results we're going to get. So here is the results for auto chapter summarization. These are the descriptions for the auto chapter or summarization capabilities of AssemblyAI. And if you look here, this is the kind of response that we're going to get. Again, this is the ID of this transcription, and the status will be completed when it's done. And here is how we're going to get the chapters. So basically the chapters will be a list of dictionaries, and each line or each dictionary inside this list will have a summary. As we said, it will be a longish description of what is happening in this chapter, a headline that is again a bit of a longer description of, or the biggest headline of what is happening, what is being talked about in this chapter, and the gist is just a couple of word long basically the gist of this chapter, what people are talking about. We will also get the start and end of this chapter in milliseconds, so then we can turn it into seconds and then display it to the user. So let's build the logic in Streamlit to display the results when we get it in a JSON format like this. We might need to ask AssemblyAI if the transcription or the analysis is done or not a bunch of times. So that's why what I'm going to say is, while the status is not completed, just keep going with this loop. And before that, I'm going to set the status to be submitted, because will be the status at first. And all right, so how we're going to get the status is by using the polling endpoint. So again, we're going to have to send a request to AssemblyAI to tell us how the transcription is going. This time, this will be a GET response, because we're not posting anything. We're going to send it to the polling endpoint, and we are using the same headers. As you might remember, I defined the header in this other file, but because I'm saying import everything from the get results Python file, they are able to have access to the headers. And the response to this, sorry, this is not response, this should be requests. And I also need to import requests library here. And the response to this will be called the polling response. And from this polling response, I can extract the status. How I'm going to do this is I am going to make it into a readable JSON format. And in there, I can find the status. And then I will say, well, this is the status. So I will update the status variable with this. So if it's still not completed in the next round, if it's completed in the next round, it will not enter this loop again. But for now, what I want to know is if status is completed, I want to enter into this condition and start displaying the results. There are two things that I want to display. The first one is the categories, and the second one is the summaries. We can also just create headers inside our app like we had before here to kind of, make it easier for people to use it, make it more user-friendly. So for that, I'm going to use subheader. This will be the main themes of this call. This will be the summary notes of this meeting. So as I showed you before, I basically want to put everything in an expander because if you start having a lot of text one after another, it's going to start getting really messy. So that's why I want to keep everything in what in Streamlit they call an expander, especially the themes, because these themes are just going to be like a good to know. They're not that vital of an information. So that's why I will just list them one after another in an expander. And how I'm going to do that is with this. I'm going to use the with keyword here, and I will create a Streamlit expander. And this expander will just say, these are the themes. And in there, what I want to do is basically create a markdown for all of the themes that AssemblyAI was able to capture from this call. So to create a list, I can easily, in Markdown at least, I can easily add a asterisk and then leave a blank space, just one space, and then it will automatically create the list view like this. But of course, to display them, first I need to extract them from the response we get, the transcription response. So here we got the polling response, right? And if the polling response has the status of completed, that means that we can extract these categories from them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Polling response.json. And again, let's take a look at the AssemblyAI's documentation to see what it's going to look like. So we need to go to topic detection, and here is what the results are going to look like. So basically we need to go to IAB categories results. Here is a more extensive list of all the categories that they were able to capture, but I want more of like a summary, all of them together, so it's easier to read. We don't have to deal with this whole dictionary sort of structure. I can just read them here, and that's what I'm going to do. I can actually copy and paste it. It will probably be easier. IAB categories result, because I am very prone to making typos. And then summary. And this is already a list here, as you can see. So it will be very easy to parse it also. Once I put this into a categories list, I can just say, in order to display them, for cat in categories, create a markdown list and show me all the categories. For chapters, I'm going to need to do a little bit more work. It's not that much more work because here you can see for categories, we're going to have more information, and I want to actually use most of this information. I don't want to just extract the summary and let the other ones go. So that's why what I'm going to do is to put all of this, the response for the chapter summaries, into a data frame. I like using pandas data frames because it makes everything a bit more manageable. So before I do that, let me import pandas as PD and put the results for the chapters from the polling response into a first just a variable and then to a data frame. Luckily, it's very easy once you have a list of dictionaries to create a data frame from it. So I will just call this chapters data frame, and then pandas data frame. And I just need to chuck this in there, and then it will create a data frame for me. So maybe let's stop here and then see what we have so far, and then we can go ahead and display all the chapters in a more structured way. All right, it looks good for now, so let me just browse my files and upload the meeting audio. All right, let's see if this works.
I want to ask about some of the competitive relationships in this film.
All right, it looks like it is actually working. We are able to upload an audio file and also listen to the audio file. So let's see so far what we built is displaying the themes, and also we wanted to see the data frame. Actually, let me also just print st data frame. Just display this data frame to see what kind of data frame that we have. And then we will be able to understand it better. All right, this all looks good. We have the themes already here. That was the easier one of the two. And for the summary, chapter summaries, we have it all in a data frame. As you can see, the start and the end are noted in milliseconds, so it's one of the first things that I want to do is to turn them into seconds and minutes. I'm going to put this extra function here in the get results Python file because I don't really want to have a lot of helper function, etc. in my main application file. So this is a very simple function. Actually, Patrick, the other YouTube video maker on our channel, used this function before on a similar application tutorial. So it's very simply just converts the milliseconds into seconds and minutes and returns the text version. So what I'm going to do here is to just apply this to the start and the end columns. I will create new columns basically because I don't want to mess with the milliseconds. I'm going to need it in the future when I want to change the where the audio starts playing. So that's why I will create new columns, setting or keeping their names, what their string name needs to be in terms of minutes and seconds. And we can display it again and see how it looks. All right, we see that we still have the start and end in milliseconds. Now we also have the start and end in string formats with minutes and seconds. So let's go ahead now and create the actual expanders that will show us the chapters gist and also the full summary. So I don't really want to show the data frame anymore. I just wanted to see, what it looked like. So from this point on, I would have to iterate through the data frame to show the summaries for each chapter. In chapters df. This way I will get each row of this data frame and every iteration of this for loop. And for every iteration of this for loop, I'm going to create an expander that will have the gist of this chapter. And inside I want two things. I want the summary, so I will use that in just normal text format inside Streamlit. And I also want a button that is going to be clickable to bring us to the beginning of this chapter that you're looking at. So for the summary, it's very simple. Again, we already have the summary inside this data frame, so just need to say row. And for the button, it's again very simple. You need to say row, start, str. So it's not clickable just yet. I just want to show you what it looks like, and then we can do the dynamically changing where the audio starts. So let's run this again. All right, so we already have the chapters here, as you can see. Maybe let's look into a bunch to see if they make sense. So for example, a trip into the past. The cast of The Lord of the Rings is on a reunion call from the cast of the classic trilogy. Joan and Josh are trying to reunite some of the cast behind the iconic trilogy based on the books. Orlando Bloom is now on the call, but he is not a fan of the series. Interesting. Another one could be Lord of the Rings reunion. Okay, this is a good summary of Elijah Wood, Sean Ashton, Dominic Moynihan, blah, 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 blah. They reunite, and Elijah Wood says this iconic line. And let's bring on the mastermind behind the magic, Peter Jackson. Apparently he also joins. What else? Theft from your set. That's interesting. If you have a prop from the Lord of the Rings, pull it out now. I'm very impressed by the fact that everybody got something. I guess everyone pulled something out. This is called theft. That's really funny. Or another one, for example, coming out with the score. The Fellowship theme and the Shire theme are the other half of the film. Howard Shore is the composer of the iconic Ring theme. Peter and Philip first recorded the blah, blah, blah. So basically here they're talking about how they came out with the score of this movie. So that's quite interesting. We actually got some really nice chapters here. So the next thing that I want to do is to make these clickable. So when I click, this audio file is going to click to the 0611 point, and then I can start playing it. So for that, actually, I'm going to use one of my favorite things about Streamlit, which is the session states and the callback functions. They make a gigantic difference in your app to make them a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more sophisticated, other than, just an app that runs from beginning to end. So the first thing that I need to do for that is to create a session state, and then I will call that session state start time or something like that. Let's call it, I don't know, start point. And we can initialize it to be 0. It doesn't really matter what it is in the beginning. And I will also create a callback function. And this callback function will be the thing that will update the session state when I click the button. You can call it update start. We will pass the milliseconds to this function, and then we will convert it into seconds. And then we will jump using the session state of Streamlit. And let's do this first. I will update the session state that I've just created. So it's called start point. And take the milliseconds, divide them by 1,000, then I have seconds, but I also need to make this into an integer. So now after this happens, the session state of start point will be updated, but of course this will yet not mean anything. If you remember, when I have the audio widget of Streamlit here, I set the start time to be 0. Instead, I will set the start time to be the starting point. But yet, still, nothing will happen because I am not calling this update start function anywhere yet. So for that, I'm going to go over here, and in the button, I'm going to create a on-click behavior. And that will be the update start function. As you can see, I am passing an argument to the update start function. And to be able to do that, I'm going to say args row start. And that way I will be passing the start milliseconds to the update start function. Update start function will update the session state called, the parameter in the session state called start point, and this will affect our audio widget, and it will update when this audio file starts playing. Let's do it one more time. So right now it is playing.
Them, or is it just this group?
But we obviously talked to Howard earlier because
we have the themes, we have all the chapters and their descriptions. Let's say we choose this one, and if I click this, yes, it has jumped to 37 minutes, 35 seconds. And then let's say you're interested, you can start listening to the chapter here.
Please welcome Mr. Howard Shore.
Hi, Howard!
And I'm guessing from that point on, Howard Shore joins the call and they start talking about the score or the music behind Lord of the Rings, which is an amazing movie. If you haven't watched it, I'll definitely recommend that you do. But that is not the point in this video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope everything was clear. Before you leave, don't forget to give us a like and maybe even subscribe to our channel to show us your support. We would also love to hear any of your questions or comments about this tutorial in the comment section below. And don't forget that you can get a free API token for AssemblyAI using the link in the description. But for now, thanks for watching again. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.